Heroes and heroines of Natt Fitness. I'm excited because I am the fitness guy, and we're going to talk a little bit of fitness right now. We're going to talk strength training. Why strength training? Because that's what I want to talk about. And I love strength training, and I think everyone should strength train. If you're the person who's watching this video and you're like, yeah, but like, I don't really want to get bulky, I don't want to get muscles, or I don't really want my frame to change. I lifted weights this one time and it was super unpleasant and it hurt and it's heavy. Or if you're the person that's just like, yeah, dude, weights and shakes, like, what do I got to do, right? This video is something that's exceptional for you. And the reason that I think this video is something that's going to be exceptional for you is because I want to talk a little bit about the science behind what muscle tissue and the act of actually building muscle is. On one side of the spectrum, I want to address something, and it has to do with the word called toning. When you hear someone say like, I'm not really interested in building muscle, I just want to tone. I get it. It's a certain type of aesthetic. It's a certain type of a look. Ultimately, what I want to talk about on the body are three different types of tissue. There's skeletal muscle tissue, which we refer to as bone. And there's also other tissues like vital organs, things like that. There's fatty tissue, which is coming in the form of visceral fat or subcutaneous, which is most of the fat that we refer to on the body. And there's definitely other versions of fat, adipose tissue, intramuscular fat, stuff like that. But the first two, visceral and subcutaneous, are a huge part of that other tissue. Then obviously there's bone, right? When we lift weights or we get into a form of strength training, what we're looking for is benefit. I don't care if you're starting this out or if you've been doing this for years. The goals and the range are going to be different, but the impact is going to be the same. And that impact is something called hormesis, adaptation. If I go and I choose to eat a cinnamon roll, but I do that every single day for 99 days, there's going to be a response to that, right? I eat the cinnamon roll, there's going to be a response. Let's say I'm that same person and I eat an apple. I do that every single day for 99 days. Stimulus and response. The outcomes, however, are going to be night and day different. One's going to make you sick, one's going to lead to lethargy, one's going to lead to cognitive dissonance. It can inflame the body, it can block inflammation in the gut, a myriad of stuff. And this one over here could lead to energy, it could lead to stimulation. You get great polyphenols, you're getting great micronutrients, you have good fiber digesting in the body, you're aggregating and propagating good germs in the gut. So strength training is very much the exact same thing, except you're inducing a stress response so that you can get the body to adapt. The body doesn't need any protocol or any kind of triggering. Stress itself actually does that. But we all know what it's stress, right? Like if you've been driving to work and you get a flat tire, stress. We also know what it's like when you're on a hot day and you're walking with the dog and there's no drinking fountain, you gotta pee and you're like, oh, all the stress, and the dog's stress and everything is stress. We also know what it's like when it's like the holiday season, you're trying to run around and you're trying to create stress. All of that stress is what we call distress. That stress is different from what I'm talking about. The stress that I'm talking about or alluding to is called eustress, eustress. And that form of stress does create the same fight or flight response. We call that the sympathetic nervous response, which is part of the autonomic nervous system. But that stress response actually breaks down tissue. So if I go to the gym and I commit to a strength training protocol, that strength training protocol is going to induce a set of hormesis. That hormesis is breaking down muscle tissue. Or when people go to the gym and they're like, I'm getting stronger, you're actually doing quite the opposite. You're actually damaging the body. You're actually breaking down skeletal muscle tissue through the repetitions of whatever muscle or group or exercise that you're working. Through that process, the body recognizes that it needs to adapt because the muscle has been damaged, and it'll go through this process of recovery. And in that process of recovery, the muscle tissue itself actually builds itself back more resilient. So it doesn't go from breakdown to homeostasis, it goes to breakdown to adaptation. That's a great thing, which is hence why if you see somebody who works outside in a very laborious job, you can see their build is very different than somebody who might work at a desk who maybe is more sedentary or doesn't have a physical lifestyle. The body is designed to move, and the more that we move and the more that we incorporate heavy weight training specific movements, the more we're going to be able to induce hormesis. Now, for the record, what one person might be capable of doing and ultimately how that plays a role on their genes is going to have a very different look on somebody else who doesn't. If I think that somebody who is coming to the gym, it's their first time lifting weights, they're not very strong, should they focus on slower mechanics? Sure. But should they ultimately begin to work their way up? Absolutely. If somebody goes, well, I don't want to be big and strong, I just want to actually have good strength. A lot of the same movements that somebody who does want to focus on taking their body to the scale and ultimately being able to put on an enormous amount of strength or enormous amount of muscle, the movements are going to be the same. The duration of how much they might lift, the frequency of how they might lift, the tempo, the amount of weight, and ultimately, depending on if they're a guy who are going to have, androgenic hormones that women do have, but not nearly at capacity, is going to dictate and play a myriad of roles that are going to differ and how they're ultimately going to look. When we talk about ultimately getting into a state where we're trying to build strength and we want to have more health, we want to have more autonomy, we want to feel better, we want to move without pain, we want to cultivate an appetite so we can eat more food, because that's what the science or the research says. In order to lose weight, I need to take in more healthy calories. If I want to gain muscle, I need to take in more calories as a whole, but definitely a majority of them should be cleaner or leaner calories. Strength training is ultimately going to break down tissue. And the last thing I want to talk about is something inside an actual animal cell. And this has to do with something that's called a cytoplasm. Cytoplasm that I'm referring to in particular is called mitochondria. Maybe you've heard of this terminology before in like a science class or a biology class. Mitochondria are basically the power plants of your body. They are the ones that produce energy, and that energy is the energy that you use to think. It is the energy that you use to write, to sleep, to work out, to do your job, to chase after your kids. When you think about this kind of energy, what you have to understand is that this energy is made by the mineral magnesium with glucose inside the muscle cell, which forms ATP. ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate. If we are in a position where we want to have more energy, we want to feel better, it's important that we utilize that energy in a very efficient way. Strength training not just breaks down and depletes the body of that energy, so that way when the body does take in those nutrients and it is rebuilding that tissue, it works more efficiently. But the body's ability to actually produce more mitochondria is what's going to lead to your efficiency of having more energy. So this is actually peer-reviewed scientific evidence when showing you, if you're in a position where you want to lose more weight, you're going to benefit from having more mitochondria that could actually manifest in taking more glucose. If you're trying to gain weight and you need to eat more calories, having more mitochondria in your cells as a result of strength training is only going to help you. But if you just want to attain great health, strength training is going to benefit you for the same reasons that it will, whether you're on one side of the fence or the other. There's a myriad of different versions of strength training. That's not what this video is for. If you do, you can definitely go check out other videos that I have, and I'll be able to explain to you the difference in hypertrophy versus strength versus functional strength training, and finding out which one is more for you. But getting plugged into a form of strength training can definitely change your life. And if you're in a position where you're finding out and you're saying, Nick, this information sounds good, but I don't know where to start. I don't have that experience. I'm not an experienced lifter. I don't have that confidence. We've all been there, believe it or not. I was there at one point in time where I had to learn the fundamentals. I was just able to perfect that craft over time, and I wanted to cultivate and devote my life to helping people like you learn that. You can do that by clicking the link below, joining my back office community, and I would love to have a conversation. In that conversation with numbers of hundreds of people who are in my back office community, we'll be able to talk a little bit about where you might be able to start and different resources that I have, or different resources that are available to you on the market that can help you get started and feeling your best. And if you're in a position where you also think that this was a word, not just for you, and you want more information that I might have with any of the other topics, you think that this is definitely something that can benefit someone else, I highly recommend clicking the subscribe button on this channel. I'm always producing more information, and with that, I'll get a chance to hear your comments and things that you like, and that will give me topics that I'll be able to bring back to the table and talk about with my personal expertise that will benefit you and help you reach your potential. I want to say thank you for giving me your time and being able to connect with you on something that's very passionate for me, but it's also something I know that will change your life. Till next time, my friends, Nicholas Natt with Natt Fitness, signing off.